Ladies and gents, boys and girls, happy Thursday, October the 19th, 2023. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. We've got a jam-packed show for you, talking predictions for both South Carolina and the entire SEC. We're also talking top storylines for the game in Como this weekend. A lot to discuss, a lot of interesting storylines in this ball game when the Gamecocks and Tigers do battle at Thoreau Field. 3:30 kickoff on the SEC Network. And guys, in just a couple of minutes, we kick off this show with Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. He'll be joining us at 12:05. You're going to want to stick around for this one. I've got some things to discuss with Marc Ryan. Of course, we'll be talking football. We'll talk about the weekend that was, the game that was South Carolina and Florida, his Florida Gators coming out triumphant. But we've got some other things to talk about. His eventful week with Gamecock Nation. A lot on the docket today. I see Xavier M., Brendan M., Ethan K., Travi, what's going on? Also, Hunter Johnson. Appreciate you guys in the comments in the chat. Also, those in the Big Cock Club Discord, head over to the TDC Questions channel. The TDC Questions channel, be sure your questions are answered there. Mad Dog says in the Discord, tell Mark I bought a Gamecock scratch-off lottery ticket and lost in the fourth quarter. Imagine that. Mad Dog, you can tell him yourself, guys. If you want to leave some comments in the chat box, if you want to leave some comments on YouTube, you are more than welcome to do that. And Mark is a guy that will check those comments. He will lock in on those and read those and banter with you all. But again, it's going to be an electric conversation. I've got some things that I want to discuss with Marc Ryan. And of course, we'll talk ball as well. My guy, Tucker Hamilton. What's going on? Kane Bay, appreciate you. Austin Gregory says Marc Ryan, Mr. Bottom 10% himself. Jay Smith says, what's up, Chris? Eric Reese, what's going on, my man? Reese Creative. What's up? Hunter Johnson says, maybe Shane Beamer can go punt for Kai. We know he won't shank one making that kind of contact with a cooler. Xavier, Brendan M., Ethan Kelly, or Ethan K., I should say. Travi, what's going on? Appreciate you. Thank you all so much, again, for the continued love and support, guys. We've also got our daily mailbag coming at the end of the show. Guys, this is something you're probably going to start to see us do in regards to the structure of the show, because what I've found is we'll have our number of topics that we're speaking on, whatever it might be, and then we'll have our guest at a set time in our second hour. And what I'm finding is we're maybe stretching some content a little bit long to fill that space to get to the convo with our guests. So what we may start doing is this. We may start kicking off each and every single show with our guests. And after the guest appearance, after our conversation, then get into our topics, knock those out, get into those, obviously dive into those full in-depth in detail. And then we will have our daily mailbag. So, guys, just stay tuned. Either way, guys, content bleeding out of the eyeballs every single day. In case it's your first time tuning in, TDC rocks every single day, noon to 2 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter as well. Be sure to subscribe to YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. And also, of course, guys, the podcast drops every single day. iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, you can check us out there. As again, we're dropping daily pods every single day. Also, guys, do not forget the A1 Air Quality Consultants post-game call-in show will take place after Saturday's game against Missouri. That'll be airing again, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We'll take all of your questions, comments, and of course, your calls immediately following the game. Guys, let me remind you also, next weekend, the game against Texas A&M, we will be in Hilton Head at Carolina Cigars for a watch party at the Cigar Lounge. Going to be one hell of a time. Going to be a lot of fun, guys. Cannot wait to get back down there with our good friends over at Carolina Cigars. Hope to see a ton of low country Gamecocks out there in Hilton Head. So again, guys, y'all check that out. Going to be a blast. And again, guys, appreciate you all tuning in, your love, your support, whether it be the podcast, the live show, the merchandise side of the business, social media, what have you. We are having a record football season, and it's all because of you guys. So thank you all so much. Again, guys, we await Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. And this is going to be one of the more intense conversations we've probably ever had. I say intense. It's just going to be a conversation where we're going to talk about a lot of things that are not just football. Because, again, Marc Ryan has had a very eventful week this week with Gamecock Nation. A very eventful week. Anyways, I see Ethan K says this, and let's see if y'all agree. Josh Pate made a great point yesterday. Beamer cares too much about what other people think about him. Can't do that in this business. Ethan K, I do think that Josh Pate was correct in saying that. In the sense of guys, like, again, and I'm going to reference it in this conversation. I'm a believer in stoicism, and I'm a believer in, one of my favorite books is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Take nothing personally is one of those four agreements. And the premise behind that is if somebody says something about you, even to you, it is no reflection on you. It is a reflection on what is going on in their own universe, right? In their own existence, right? So be able to deflect and let those things just go off your back and not take it personally. I do think Shane Beamer at times, and I know he's very emotional. He loves South Carolina, guys. I get that. I do think at times he takes things more personally than he should, right? And that leads to press conferences. That leads to whatever else it might be. Again, guys, obviously Marc is one of our most interactive guests, so leave your comments in the YouTube chat. We will get into those. I'm sure Marc will be perusing through the chat as we are on the show, which is one of the fun parts, again, is engaging with you all. Again, with that being said, he joins us every single Thursday, and we kick off our show on this Thursday with our good friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. He joins us once again. Marc, what is going on, my friend? I see you've got the orange and blue on as expected. What is up?
Can I get a little gator chomp from all the great folks in the audience here? Can I get a little gator chomp? What is good, my friends? It is fantastic to see here today. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. The last few days, there's been just a little bit more pep in my step than usual. Chris, look, man, let's just call a spade here, okay? It was a hell of a football game. It was a battle of two somewhat mediocre football teams that both teams absolutely had to have. And the only reason I'm up and you're down, right, is because Florida found a way to win a game that they don't historically win. 0-17 in their last 17 games when they trail by 10 points in the fourth quarter, okay? So I am not here today flexing because Florida's way better than South Carolina. You know what I mean? Florida couldn't stop South Carolina just as badly. I thought Florida was supposed to have a defense, right? So a hell of a game. Very grateful for the victory. College football is the one sport where I allow myself to do this, to be a fan, right? And the Gators will always be that for me. And certainly there was a little extra. There was a little extra in this one for me this year, Chris. There's no doubt about that. What's good, brother? How's everybody doing in Gamecock land?
Doing well. Looking forward to the Missouri game. I think I've shocked some people with my score prediction for that one, and we'll get into that in a second, Marc. I want to start on a little bit of a different note because obviously this game was personal for you.
Sure, absolutely.
And I totally understand that. Trust me, I get it. The Shane Beamer tweet at you in the station, the bottom 10 percenters displaying the actions towards you and family, most notably your wife, which I have felt that as well. My question to you is this, because you've said it before, your audience at the Fan Upstate, it's 70-30 Clemson to South Carolina, if I recall correctly, which would make a lot of sense. Obviously, we are in Greenville. We're like 30 minutes away from Clemson. In an effort to disparage the bottom 10% with the commentary on Monday and Tuesday, and I don't know if it went into yesterday, maybe it did because of the broken foot thing, whatever. In the effort to disparage the bottom 10%, does it not concern you at all that the 90% that are not the scum of the earth, or the 30% that tune into your show, or even those who have tuned into this show, your appearances, that maybe were on the fence about Mark Ryan, to your point, because they had heard things about Mark Ryan and they did not get to know the person necessarily. Does it concern you at all with some of the commentary you've had that in an effort to disparage the bottom 10%, you're kicking all of Gamecock Nation while they're down, and you're making it personal with the folks that supported Mark Ryan? Because I'm going to finish, but you brought me on your show Monday,
mm-hmm.
and you said something that very interesting, and people know, I think, to a point of fact. The relationship between I and the University of South Carolina, to call it rocky is, putting it lightly, I would say. There are people notably in the building who hate the Spurs Up show, who hate my guts, most notably Justin King. That is well documented at this point. But what I do my very best to do, Mark, is not make it personal, because I know that I have an audience they don't give a damn about the beef. They don't give a damn about whether the University of South Carolina, what they think of me, because I get where you're coming from, because I'd imagine, I know a lot of people ask you, Mark, why don't you go to more South Carolina games? Well, I'd imagine it's because they're not welcoming you. They're not welcoming you with open arms. They're not making you or the fan upstate or anybody feel welcome. So I understand not going somewhere that you don't feel welcome. All in all, I'll say this. The only reason I don't spend my time putting more attention into going back at the 10%, going at USC and making it personal, is because I care more about what the 90+% think than disparaging the 10% and making it personal. Does that make sense? And I get all to that to say this. What would you say to the 90% and or the 30% that tune into Mark Ryan and like Mark Ryan, and they see Mark Ryan kicking them when they're down and going even above and beyond that? What do you say to that?
So one thing, Chris, that I don't understand, all right, and I welcome this discussion. I welcome this discussion with all your great listeners. There's something unique about the state of South Carolina that I've not experienced anywhere else I've lived, Chris. And it's that if you are critical of somebody's team, they take it as you said something about their mama, and they take it personally. And Chris, as you know, I've lived and hosted in Tampa, lived and hosted in Atlanta, lived and hosted in Houston. I can tell you, I can go on the air in Atlanta and say, man, this Falcons roster looks like a bottom 5 roster in the NFL. And Falcons fans may debate you, but they don't take it personally like you said something about their mama. And I don't understand why that is. We had that discussion on the show the other day. I was out yesterday for a medical procedure. And had this upper endoscopy, Chris. Never do that. Okay. Never do that, man. So anyway, and the response that I got was very candid. And my audience said, Mark, there's a lot of folks in this state that don't have a lot, and they don't have much else other than their team. But to me, if I'm critical of your team and you take it personally, that means the perspective is not in line in your life. Okay. Like that's how I look at it. Okay. Because it's just me being critical of your team. If, Shane Beamer and I are not off on the right foot. Okay. I think that's putting it mildly. Right. And he has not made a positive impression on me. But why does that mean that you and I can't be friends? Or that Austin Gregory and Aaron Rodgers and Yoda and Madison Duncan, and who cares? Because me having a beef with Shane Beamer has, I'm not, Chris, I root for the Gamecocks anytime they play someone outside of the SEC. Okay? I rooted for the Gamecocks my whole life when they played Clemson outside of the SEC. Then I move here, and it just so happens that the experience I have, we're all products of our experiences, right? The experience that I have is that Clemson has been very welcoming, that has welcomed me in open arms. Sometimes they don't like the things that I say. Sometimes their athletic department doesn't like the things that I say, but they continue to welcome me. Okay. And if you've seen the video, Chris, of the one Florida fan that's getting chomped at from the back, have you seen that video?
I have not seen that.
Yeah, he's getting chomped at, and then they're cursing him out. And then when Florida takes the lead, he goes like this, and they're cursing him out. that has unfortunately been my experience with the bottom 10%. What I'd say to the 90% is, look, I got nothing against you. Why would you guys, if you put yourself in my shoes, any single one of you would have a problem with Shane Beamer. Every single one of you, if you put yourself in my shoes. Now, I invite you to do that for a minute, okay? Because we get intel in our business. And as you guys know, I got intel in January that Shane Beamer had interest in Garrett Riley, had reached out to Garrett Riley, and that came from inside the Carolina football building, this intel. How do you know that, Mark? How did you, Chris, do you know what our number one most downloaded market is? It's not Greenville, South Carolina, okay? It's Columbia. That's our number one market for downloads. And I'm going to bring you in, Chris, to a philosophy of mine that was echoed and shared by Howard Stern. Now, I'm not Howard Stern, but he's pretty good company, right? In the movie Private Parts, and this is true, there's a scene where the program director that wants to fire him can't believe his numbers that are coming in. And he says, well, how long are the people who like him listening? 20 minutes on average. And the thing, what's the most common reason they give for listening for 20 minutes? They want to see what he's going to say next. How about the people who don't like Howard Stern? How long are they listening? An hour and a half. Why? Most common reason, they want to see what he's going to say next. Chris, I understand that policy. And I will never identify with a percentage of the fan base that acts like I'm saying something about their mama when I'm critical about their head coach. Your team is not you. You got to make a separation between church and state here, guys. Your team isn't you. You are not a Gamecock. I am not a Gator, okay? I root for the Gators. I am a fan of the Gators, all right? So if you had intel, okay, from inside the Carolina football building that there was interest in Garrett Riley and that interest was not reciprocated, and then Shane Beamer lights you up for saying what you know to be true, how would you feel? Okay? Then you see the same behavior pattern when he breaks his foot. And then, Chris, this is something that not a lot of people know. I have on multiple sources that last year at the Georgia High School State Championships, Shane Beamer got into an altercation with another SEC assistant coach. And the Georgia State athletic director had to step in and separate that. So now I've seen, Chris, repeatedly a behavior pattern of somebody acting like a petulant child and not like a CEO. Okay? It's happened to me. It's happened to other SEC coaches, right? It's happened when he swings and takes it out on the wall. And by the way, Chris, Gatorade bottle, a wall, I don't know about you, man. That's never lost. It's like Father Time. It's undefeated. You swing at the wall, you will lose that every single time. Forrest Gump said, stupid is as stupid does, right? So what I didn't know, Chris, is I didn't expect the game Saturday to be so personal to me. And I'm on the air and I'm doing my show and I just got overcome by this emotion. And I didn't expect that. And it was, number one, the bottom 10% last year coming after my wife. And by the way, my wife is the hottest girl I've ever seen in my life. Okay. So, for anyone to come at her, anyone needs to get their eyes checked. Okay. Hottest girl I've ever seen in my life. All right. So you come after my wife and then you got the Beamer stuff coming at me in January. And imagine it, Chris, what you're saying is true. You know it. And I felt like the Beamer commentary was him being mad that I knew something I shouldn't know. And then I pictured him going around the office trying to figure out who the mole is. Like that's what I pictured. And so it was personal to me. But you know what I'm going to do, Chris? That's over now. That's over now. You wouldn't believe, Chris, the number of Gamecock fans this week. I just got out of an allergist appointment this morning. My doctor is a Gamecock fan. He goes, Mark, keep it up, man. Just keep it up. I listen to you every day. I just got out of there. I listen up. I think, Chris, who was it the other day it was Dabo, said what social media has done is it's given a loud voice to the vocal minority to the point where we actually think it's the majority. And so, Chris, those people who value good content are still going to be there. Because after this personal episode is over for me, and it's open right now, I'm still going to give you great content. You're going to know that, Beamer, I think, needs to grow up. Okay? You're going to know that. But at the same time, like, I don't wish poorly upon the Gamecocks. And I certainly don't wish poorly upon Gamecock fans, many of whom I know are great people like yourself, many of whom are good people that I'm friends with. And I don't understand, Chris, why there is this feeling like a criticism of your team is a criticism of you. I think there's a lot of reasonably minded Gamecock fans that would say to Shane Beamer, grow the hell up, man. I mean, you said, Chris, it was embarrassing what he did the other day. That was one. I mean, wouldn't you say to Shane Beamer, grow up, man? Why are you fighting with SEC assistant coaches when you're at the Georgia high school athletic championships? Why are you coming at Mark Ryan when his only fault is that he knows something that you didn't want him to know? Why are you doing that? You know what I'm saying? Like grow up, because it comes off like he's a petulant child when he acts like this. Now, let's talk about the positive, Chris. Spencer Rattler. Could I be more impressed with that dude if I tried? That guy's absolutely incredible. He's incredible. The Gamecock fans that fill Williams-Brice Stadium create one of the most hostile atmospheres in college football. Incredible. It should feel hostile. I should, Chris, not want to go there. Okay? I should not want to go there. It feels that way. The passion that the fan base shows is incredible. The cojones that Spencer Rattler plays with, he didn't sign up to have nothing around him. He didn't sign up to have an offensive line that offends everybody. Okay? Frankly, is offensive. He didn't sign up for that. But yet he's out there every single day doing his A-level best, right? If I'm critical of the Gamecocks, it's not a criticism of you. You guys got to separate that. And then finally, Chris, the last thing I'll say on it is, it's like when that foot thing happens, people expect you to just say, Beamer broke his foot after the Florida game. Well, if you don't know that, you don't know me and you don't know Chris Phillips. We're going to find the story. We're going to give you the commentary about it. And if you're a Gamecock fan, you should be embarrassed by that. That's pathetic. Chris, it's not just me or you, and it's not just hate. You heard what Paul Feinbaum had to say about it, right? Like, this guy is laughing at this when he acted a fool. He's cajoling, he's laughing at this. If he had spent 1% of the energy trying to beat Florida, he is the CEO of the Gamecock football program. And in many cases, he acts like the janitor. It's embarrassing, Chris.
And I went on record and said that, Mark, and I caught hell from some of Gamecock Nation. I think that tweet's up to like 250,000 views. So that was, a take that got out there, certainly. I'll just say this, Mark, because you said a lot there. It's a lot to unpack. Number one, you know this, because if I did, I couldn't have you on the airwaves weekly and we couldn't have a relationship. I don't take your takes personally, right? I view them as sports takes as such. I think the banter is fun. Granted, why I say the beauty is in the banter. My biggest feedback to what you just said would just be this one thing. Two things, actually. Again, I am my own person. You're my own person. The reason that, because there have been many times, Mark, where I could have made it very, very personally. I mean, I think you've probably and many others have seen. I mean, it's when Gamecock Nation wants you gone, or they want you to know they don't like you, they don't just say they don't like you. They try to accuse you of things that get you thrown in jail. They attack your character. They attack your manhood. They attack, it's a reason why I will not put my girlfriend on social media. I will not put my girlfriend in my profile picture, because I know people are sick and twisted, and I don't want to give them that opportunity. But I would say this, again, I would just go back to the reason I don't take things personally is because in my effort to disparage that group, I would be taken away from an opportunity where I could have taken that energy and put it into something positive and making great content, because my content will stand out above the nonsense, any nonsense.
Let's go
the
back
bottom
and forth
10%
on this,
spews.
Let's go back and forth on this, okay? Let's go back and forth on this.
Mm.
I believe the passion is great content. And the kind of audience that I want, the kind of listeners that I want, are going to still come back even if I upset them, because they're going to understand, in the end, Mark did take that Florida game personally, but he's still going to have the best damn show out there, and I'm going to want to come back for that content. I'm not appealing, Chris, to the stupid is as stupid does crowd. I frankly don't want them listening. Okay. I'm appealing to the kind of crowd who has a depth of thought that can understand that a criticism of their team is not a criticism of them. I'm not coming at Gamecock fans. I have some criticisms. I have some things that I've seen that a very small percentage of Gamecock fans are responsible for, and the head coach is responsible for. But again, man,
and to your point,
Virginia,
yeah. To your point, though, Mark, I mean, a lot of folks, and this is how college football is, I think. I don't know if you said it's just the state of South Carolina, but I look at it as in the SEC and maybe Clemson too. I mean, definitely Clemson. We've seen it. You talk about college football is this in the West, it's this in the North. In the South, it's religion. And a lot of people make their head coaches out to be their gods. That might make some folks uncomfortable, but that is the reality. So, and I agree with you that is wrong because Shane Beamer is a human being. And there's this misconception that, for example, I'm behind Shane Beamer 110%. I support the guy fully. I think he's the right person for South Carolina football till I see otherwise. Do I think he cares too much about what people think about him on social media? Hell yeah. Do I think he spends too much time worrying about what's being said and, he takes things super personally? And yes, I do. He shouldn't have clapped back at a Mark Ryan. Like, I would tell Shane Beamer that to his face. Coach, you missed the mark there. You shouldn't have done that.
Well, you
didn't gain anything out of that.
You should pick up the phone and call me.
Fair enough.
Have a conversation.
But I would say this.
Here's why I've got a problem about what you said. Pick up the phone, call me. Let's have a conversation. Don't just fire off and then not give me a way to reach out to you so we can handle it like men. But Chris, my pledge is, all right. And what you've said to me is, Mark, you held a grudge here. That's what you said to me.
And Chris, holding a grudge only hurts the person with the grudge in the end. And all I don't want to see is a lot of folks who have turned. And listen, state your loyalties to the content. You've told me before, I'm going to work my ass off and be true to the content, true to myself, and be honest. And so I'm not telling you to do things that make people like you, because I don't do that either, right? I say what I want to say, and that's it. If you don't like it, so be it. We built the business on the back of that. But I just don't want to see a lot of folks that turned in a positive way to Mark Ryan be deterred by this because they're like, he is actively shitting on my head coach and my football program. And like Gamecock fans, that's how it looks. But that's how it looks. That's how it looks.
Coach. The head
that's
coach
the perception,
is acting like a child.
The
head coach is acting like a child. Here's what I would say to you, Chris. So you say grudges, right? How would you act if you know you're acting based on what you know? The coach does that to you. The bottom 10% comes after your wife, right? Like, unless I am given an apology for that, Mark, this is Coach Beamer. I'm really sorry, man. My emotions got the best of me. We did make a call to Garrett Riley. It didn't work out. If that's never happened, okay, and he just allows the fan base to think whatever about me, how would you not have ill feelings about him? Like, how would you not? If you're me, like, how would you not?
You're
But
preaching.
Those ill feelings, Chris, those ill feelings are not against the team, and they're not against your wonderful fans and your wonderful listeners. That is, man, I got an issue with you. Now, I want the Gamecocks to have success. I want them to beat Missouri on Saturday, okay? And that's the part of this that I don't think you understand, okay? And if Shane Beamer can grow up a little bit, I'd like him to have some success in Columbia, okay? I really, really would. But, Chris, the way I look at it is if somebody's not going to stop listening to our show with great content because of they got their feelings hurt that, Mark took it personal. Well, did Mark have a right to take it personal? I think he did,
And
so
I will say this, Mark, you did have a right to take it personally. Okay. But one of my favorite quotes is, it pays to be the bigger man because getting paid isn't the bigger plan. And I will also say this, you're preaching to the choir, my friend, more than you realize, because the very entity that I cover, the University of South Carolina, has actively over the years done things that people have no idea about on the legal front to put me out of business. So trust me when I say you're preaching to the choir, my friend. You're preaching to the choir. I know what it feels like to be shunned. And I do my very best because I feel like it'd be unfair to the people that consume my content to let that negativity and grudge affect my content, because it would stain the content that I'm producing. So that's I do my very best. I mean, I do my very best to remove that. The last thing I'll say is this, Mark, and we can get into football. And this is from friend to friend, by the way. This goes to anybody out there.
Sure.
I call this purple hair syndrome. And this is going to help you on social media. I think it will. You can do whatever you want with it, but it helped me. If I told you, Mark Ryan, you have purple hair, would you care? Would you get upset? You probably wouldn't, right? Because you know you don't have purple hair. So you can take that to social media. If Shane Beamer says you're a JV radio host, you know you're not a JV radio host. If the bottom 10% says your wife is ugly, well, you know she's not ugly. So why would you let it bother you? That's when you think of it from that perspective, Mark, because you know the truth. It's the only way I'm able to go on social media and stomach some of the things I read, because I'm like, it's purple hair syndrome. I know it's false. I know it's false.
Okay.
And you
Chris,
notice, Mark,
you're right.
You notice a lot of that chatter around TSUS at threat of jinxing it, it has quieted because we have never fueled it. And it's silly and nonsense. And the content, the business, my character, it's risen above all of that BS. The only way the 10% gets any light, Mark, is if you bring light to them. I'll just leave it with that. We can get into football. But
you might be a bigger man than I am in this sense, okay? I find that when I'm full of fire and brimstone, the engagement goes up, the followers go up, the ratings go up. You and I are in the engagement business. Anytime anyone ever says you're doing it for clicks, well, no shit. We're all doing it for clicks, okay? Like, we're all in the engagement business. You know, like, of course, you know, but I notice the engagement goes up when I'm full of fire and brimstone. Chris, to me, it wasn't, like, I don't, you know, I always say to myself when someone pops off, consider the source of who's saying it, right? What bothered me is that it hurt my wife, okay, who had never, I warned her what it would be like to be with me and to be married to me. And she's like, I never realized, like, the extent of this. And then, Chris, here's something you may not know. When Beamer did that to me, that weekend, I got strep throat that became septic. It was in my bloodstream. The day after that, I was in the hospital fighting for my life, okay? And so I'm just in the hospital bed. I've got an uncontrollable fever. I still don't know how this pneumococcal strep got in my bloodstream, okay? But it was there. And this was January during all this. And I'm sitting there and I'm battling for my life. And when I just should be focused on getting well, I've got the head coach of a Power 5 football program taking cheap shots at me, okay? In my opinion, for absolutely no reason. And the pain that caused within me, I didn't know it was going to happen, came out over the weekend. It came out over the weekend. This does not apply to the Gamecock team. This certainly doesn't apply to Spencer Rattler, who is an absolute man at the quarterback position. And this doesn't apply to the 90% of Gamecock people among your listeners that are really good people. Smack is part of sports. Let's have fun with the smack of sports, all right? And I will never understand the people who act like a criticism of their team is a criticism of them. You know, I will never understand those people. And I will close with that. Hopefully that sheds some more light on my feelings, Chris. It was a hell of a game. It was a hell of an SEC football game. And I hope the Gamecocks can figure out a way to get one in Columbia this weekend. By the way, which is the real Columbia? Which one's the real Columbia?
Well, when you've won 4 in a row, it's hard for Como, for Columbia, Missouri, to not claim that. I'll say this last thing again, Mark, to your point. I know what it feels like preaching to the choir. It may have not been Shane Beamer, but I've had folks within the Gamecocks football building go out of their way to throw shit at TSUS, myself, everything else on a public platform and bring that chaos to the timeline, if you will. So trust me, I empathize with you. I understand that. And again, I think it was just important to have this conversation. Folks tuned in to hear from Marc Ryan, you know, people that just wanted to hear not an explanation, but just conversation about the week that's been with Gamecock Nation, because it's been, and I don't take it personally, by the way, Mark. I view you, I value your content, and I look at you as like almost like a WWE promoter, where it's like, it's it's for entertainment purposes. A lot of it, you're giving your opinion, but it's like I consume it in that way. Maybe is a better way to put it. Like I don't take it like you mentioned. If Mark Ryan says my team sucks, my coach sucks, that he's telling me I as a person suck. I definitely I agree with you. I think everybody should operate that way. Final thing, man. Are you ready to admit the lights weren't flickering? Come on, Mark. Come on. You won the game. What more do you need? You want to say the lights were flickering too? Come on.
Like,
come on
look,
now.
When you've shared with me what you've shared about what the – okay, wait.
Even to that level, I don't think they do that. I would like to think they wouldn't do that.
Well, all I'm saying is, to me, with what you've shared with me about what the football program has done to you, and what I've taken in what the football program has done to me, I see that, and I just raise an eyebrow, okay? Chris, you might not know this. Diesel's cousin is the lead camera guy on Monday Night Football. And Diesel spoke to him Monday, and he told Diesel point blank, and I have the text. He said, there's no way that was the camera. There's no way. He goes, no director would ever allow a camera operator to do that. So, Chris, what was it? What are you saying? I'm saying it might be like the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot. We don't know. All I'm saying is, man, with my experience and your experience, it made me raise an eyebrow, and I'm going to leave it at that. Okay? I'm going to leave it at that. All right. Certainly you saw different videos. You saw different videos where people didn't see flickering lights. It may have been where you were in the stadium. I don't know. But when it's 4th and 10 and the lights go out right as Mertz is throwing the pass, and then they go out again right before Ricky Pearsall catches the pass, if that happens at Notre Dame has the benefit of the doubt, right? Okay, this is Notre Dame. That's just unfortunate. When it happens at South Carolina, given my experience and your experience, Chris, I'm not saying they're guilty. I'm saying it made me raise an eyebrow. And that's what I expressed in the tweets. I'm saying it made me raise an eyebrow, okay? And given my experience, I think that response is fair. How funny was the Gamecock video today, by the way? Oh, my gosh.
The SEC shorts. Yes. That was painfully
essentially
funny and painfully accurate. I'll just put it that way. You mentioned what made you raise an eyebrow on Saturday, Mark. I would say that Gamecocks defense made me raise an eyebrow. Let's get to football. Obviously, I know that's what we want to talk about, but again, I appreciate you being one to go. I know you're always willing to the beauties and the banter. We mentioned how big of a game that was for both sides. I said that was the difference between 5-7 and 7-5, and now South Carolina staring down the barrel of a potential 5-7 season. I think at this point, if they could, with the current situation being as such, if they could get to 6-6, I'd call it a massive win. Mark,
Listen, I'm
not saying that the season would be a massive win. I'm saying if you went 4-2 in your last 6, I would be impressed with the turnaround. That's all I'm saying. Either way, though, a great ball game, objectively a great college football game from the Florida side. I think that was a program building, program ascending type of win, a game Billy Napier needed. Both these head coaches desperately needed them. And now you got one program in Florida on the up and up, it feels like, and South Carolina is obviously scrambling. Just thoughts on the game, because what's crazy, Mark, I go back to this. You mentioned last week, and I agree with you, that if it was a 24-20 game, it favored Florida. If you're getting in the high 30s, low 40s, no chance. It got blown out. How surprised were you that Florida was able to keep up and that game turned into the shootout that it did?
Shocked. Absolutely shocked. Because Chris, Florida came in with a number 16th ranked defense. You know, South Carolina came in with one of the worst defenses in America. I didn't see a top 20 defense on Saturday, right? I saw a defense that allowed South Carolina to look like they can run the football, right? I mean, you know, at halftime, I'm on a text chain with all my college buddies from Florida, and the feeling was Florida would lose the game because of South Carolina's ability to run the football. That was the one, you know, like you needed to make South Carolina one-dimensional, and then you needed to tee off on Rattler. Well, credit to Beamer and company, they knew that. And they used the bye week. They've really done, I think, the best that they can with spare parts on the offensive line. I mean, I think that's the best way to describe South Carolina's offensive line, right? Spare parts. They utilized that bye week to really develop the running game, which really threw Florida's defense for a loop. They were able to some degree, and this is impressive, do what Kentucky did to Florida, which is big boy them up and down the field. And that really stood out to me. So I'm shocked, Chris. Florida needed that desperately because the Gators are favored in exactly one game the rest of the year. Okay, one game. And that game was a losable game last week to Alabama. That opponent is Arkansas. Okay, that's the one game Florida's favored in the rest of the year. From a Florida fan, I want to see a game improvement over last season. So that would mean Florida needs 2 more wins. Well, it's hard to see, Chris, because you got to get Arkansas, and then you got to get 1 out of the 4 of at Missouri, sheesh, Florida State, at LSU, and Georgia. Okay, so you got to get 1 out of the 4 of those and Arkansas to finish 7-5. You see how must win that was for the Florida Gators. But to reset on the Gamecocks, man, look, we said it all offseason. You never shift the focus. You never shift what's on the board, okay? You never shift the goals. You never move the goalposts. Everyone agreed 9-3 was the goal. 8-4 was a success. 7-5 was disappointing. 6-6 and below was a failure. We never break from that. No matter the situation, we don't break from that, Chris. So that's where we are. And it's surprising to me that the offensive and defensive lines in year 3 of the Beamer era are in the position that they're in. That is surprising to me, Chris. I also wouldn't put it past them to be better next year than they are this year, even losing Rattler. I know Gamecock fans are saying, no Leggett, no Rattler. How are we possibly going to be better? You're going to be better because the line is going to be better. You're going to be better because Lenora Sellers is going to give you the true dual threat behind an improved offensive line, okay? And you're going to be better for it moving forward. I do believe that's still possible. But I do think you got to hold Beamer accountable for, like the lines shouldn't be where they are in year 3.
I think well said, Mark, and I'd agree with you. I think Shane Beamer absolutely should be held accountable. Now, you look at this week, Mark, we have from, I mean, this has been a wild week, not just for you, just Gamecock Nation, the Gamecocks in general. South Carolina loses to Florida. Then you have the post-game press conference where folks are saying that Shane Beamer is blaming everyone but himself. Obviously, we call pressures, we don't run them. So that happens, right? That becomes headline news. Then we get to Tuesday. And I said it Tuesday morning, Mark, got a weird feeling that this is going to be a noteworthy Shane Beamer presser. Little did I know the broken foot thing happens. Then Wednesday, we find out he kicked the Gatorade cooler. That's how it happened. To call this a tumultuous week for South Carolina is putting it lightly. My question to you is this. We've seen South Carolina with their backs against the wall when the fan base is ready to mail it in the season, when it seems like the Gamecocks don't have a chance, they rally around each other and play their best football. Do we see that on Saturday against Missouri, or does this game go as chalk and Mizzou blows out the Gamecocks and puts them out of their misery?
Chris, I got a funny feeling that Missouri is about to get South Carolina's best shot. I got a funny feeling that when all the chips are down, when infighting is going on, when even it feels like the walls are caving in on you from your own fans, that's when Shane Beamer and company have really circled the wagons and put out their best effort. And Las Vegas knows something, Chris, that we don't. How else can you explain a 6.5 point, 7 point spread in this game? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, well, wait a minute. Missouri almost beat LSU. Missouri beat the Kentucky team that ran all over Florida, and they beat them comfortably on the road. Okay? South Carolina loses to Florida at home. South Carolina is not competitive at Tennessee. Missouri would be favored against Tennessee right now. How does this line make sense? Then you look at all the odds, Chris, and it's like South Carolina, 36% chance to win. Wouldn't you think, based on what we've seen, that would look more like 16%?
And the line mark opened at 8 and has come down to 7. So
right,
I agree with you. It's a
fishy
line.
That. So
it's a fishy line.
So it's a fishy line. It's a stay away. Somebody knows something, and this is usually the spot where the Gamecocks come out with their best effort. Okay, I stuck with Chris the the Gamecocks over A&M. That was my pick. Remember when we did our picks in July? Mine was Gamecocks over A&M. I'm going to stick with that, but it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't shock me if South Carolina went on the road and got this one. You wonder if, Missouri, consecutive weeks, teams have a difficult time getting up 3 weeks in a row. You had LSU, right? You had at Kentucky. Is this the letdown spot for Missouri? Oh, it's only South Carolina. If Florida beats South Carolina, we're not going to have a problem. Meanwhile, South Carolina, as you've said, this has been a week from hell for Gamecock Nation and Gamecock fans. The abuse has literally come from all corners, okay? This is when they're at their best. So I can't wait to see the game. I can't wait to see what kind of Gamecock team shows up. And I can't wait to see if and how Beamer was able to rally his troops.
How excited are you to see Beamer out there hobbling around with the foot situation? I just, not even like I'm not saying in a malicious or mean way. It's going to be, it's going to be one of those lasting images no matter what happens. Like if South Carolina wins, it'll forever be remembered as the Beamer broken foot game. And God forbid if they lose, it'll become the latest meme. So I just obviously hope it's on the winning side, but no matter what, it's going to be a sight to see for sure.
Well, now, Chris, now we know why the lights were flickering at Williams-Brice Stadium. Beamer kicked the breaker box. So I mean, that's what happened there. By the way, Chris, we ran a contest the other day on the show. What is your funniest joke for Beamer's mishap? And Diesel and I agreed that the winner was that Shane Beamer is suffering from the agony of defeat. The agony of defeat, Chris. That's what he's suffering from.
Oh, not bad. Not bad. I hope we, Mark, I hope we do one of these shows where South Carolina has beaten Florida in something. So, you know what's not fair, by the way? You said over the summer you would trade. I guess the Gators didn't win the national title, but you said you'd trade that Super Regional for a football win or loss or whatever, and you didn't 100%. Come through. You got the super. You just had to have both. I'm upset.
I'll give you the baseball regional win, Chris. I'll give it.
Well, the problem is South Carolina didn't get it, so you didn't. Carolina gets you get nothing, and you deserve less. That's what Marc Ryan has to say. So, Mark, I appreciate it as always, man. This is an electric conversation. Truly, thank you for opening up on everything, and as always, it was a pleasure, my friend.
Yes, and let me tell this to you guys, the Gamecock Nation, okay? A criticism of your team is not a criticism of you, okay? It never is a criticism of you, all right? Me not having a favorable impression of your head coach does not mean that you and I can't be cool, does not mean that you and I can't be friends, okay? I'm an SEC guy through and through. I'll always root for the Gamecocks when they play a non-SEC team. And I legitimately do wish the best for the team, okay? And the quarterback especially. I can't accentuate that enough. You got a lot of guys playing with a lot of heart, okay? A lot of guys playing with a lot of heart on this team. And those are the kids I root for, okay? Those are the kids I root for. Hard for me to root for Beamer. Hard for me to root for people, Chris, that I've seen throw you under the bus, okay? Hard for me to do that. But the kids have nothing to do with that. The players have nothing to do with that. And they're giving incredible effort out there. So let's hope we see the best Gamecock effort on Saturday and a big win over Missouri.
Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate every single day, 3 to 7. Follow him on Twitter or X at Marc Ryan on air. Mark, a pleasure as always, my friend. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend. Good luck.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Folks, what a convo. Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into a quick break. I promise you, by the way, I know that conversation went super long. We will make time end of this show for the daily mailbag. So you have feedback for the convo. You have any questions, comments, commentary, what have you, would love to hear from you. Do not fret. The daily mailbag will be happening today. With that being said, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling here on this Thursday. All that and more. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Marshall Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Thursday October the 19th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As we keep the conversation rolling, guys, like I mentioned, be sure to continue to submit your questions, your comments, and your voicemails. We will get into all of those. I know we just went long with Marc Ryan. Wasn't sure we'd go quite that long, but obviously great conversation. And guys, I'll just say this on the Marc Ryan stuff because I get asked daily, right? I get asked daily. And I even had some comments on social media, Chris, why do you bring Marc Ryan on? Why do you entertain that? It's not about bringing Marc Ryan on to amplify all of his opinions and agree with everything he says. Quite the contrary. I enjoy the fact, and I'm not going to lose my cool in doing so because I know many of you want me to body Marc Ryan or make him, beat him into submission or call him names. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. But why would I not take advantage of the opportunity to challenge Marc Ryan on things he says? And I think the conversation we just had was very productive, and I'm glad he clarified some things, and I'm glad he spoke on some things that needed to be spoken on. I don't take anything personally that Marc Ryan says as a Gamecock fan and a Gamecock content creator, but he does say things that I feel like they need to be challenged. Give me something beyond this 280 character scope that we have on X and explain this talking point. Explain how you're going to not shun all of Gamecock Nation or turn all of Gamecock Nation against you because of this commentary or this thought or this opinion, what have you. And I'm sure Marc will be able to, be objective and fair and have some opinions that get people back, dare I say, on his side, because I'm very hesitant, guys, in going in on that because I'm not someone who cares about being liked either. I don't go out of my way on a daily basis. What take can I have that makes me most liked by people, by Gamecock Nation? Because if that were the case, I would not be real and genuine and honest with you all, and I would not have a number of takes that I have on a daily basis. So I'm not telling Marc Ryan to do anything. But on a weekly basis, certainly what I'm not doing is bringing Marc Ryan on to just amplify his opinions blindly and stroke his ego. Like, I appreciate the opportunity to challenge Marc Ryan on his thoughts, his opinions, his takes, his analysis, what have you. Now, what you want to do with that, guys, hey, all is fair in love and war. Whatever you want to do with that, I'm not telling you you have to like Marc Ryan. I'm not even trying to convince you. I'm just telling you why I appreciate the weekly opportunity to have those conversations and have that banter. And I'll leave it at that. Guys, that being said, let's talk some football, man. We've spent all day talking about other things, and I want to get in the ball, obviously. Gamecocks and Tigers, Saturday at Faurot Field. South Carolina looking to snap a 4-game losing streak. And as we look ahead to kickoff on Saturday, we're talking top storylines for Tigers and Gamecocks in Como. And as I just mentioned, you cannot start off the commentary about this football game without talking about the 4-game losing streak. And one of the main talking points of last season, guys, right? One of the things that we focused on were there were some really ugly streaks that South Carolina needed to snap, right? The games against Clemson, Texas A&M, Kentucky and Lexington, etc. This is one of those streaks, and it may be even tougher than all of the others that I mentioned. This is one that just, it makes Gamecock fans' stomachs turn. And I compare this, I feel it's very similar to the streak South Carolina had against Kentucky back in the mid-2010s and most of it going throughout the Will Muschamp era. And it's one of those that makes you sick to your stomach because, guys, as painful as losing, for example, to Clemson is, a lot of that losing streak came when Clemson was winning national championships or at least competing for them. So it's like you hate to lose to your arch rival, but you have to tip your cap to some degree, right? Losing to Tennessee 3 in a row or so or what have you. Like that's a painful streak, but it's Tennessee football, right? They're a historically great program. Losing to Texas A&M, not necessarily a historically great program, but a program that they've got all the resources, the way they've recruited, they got Jimbo Fisher. Like, you can justify it in your own mind why that makes sense, why that had happened. but similar to the Kentucky streak. The problem with the Missouri streak is this, guys. For a program and a fan base that is so desperate to be nationally relevant again and to be just relevant in the SEC race, you cannot do that. And you cannot justify that South Carolina football is on the way up and getting closer to winning championships or at least competing for them while you are losing every single year to the Missouri Tigers. It also goes back to the perception of Mizzou, right? Most folks look at them as they don't belong in the SEC. It's a joke. They even got invited to the conference. And you say all that, and then that team is beating you on a year-in, year-out basis. I mean, we've seen it on social media, guys. There are Gamecock fans that still say it doesn't matter if Missouri beats South Carolina every single year. They're not a better team, and they're not a better program. And that level of denial is scary because the reality is right now, guys, Missouri is at minimum on equal footing with South Carolina. At minimum on equal footing. You cannot sit here and say with a straight face, South Carolina is a better program than Mizzou. You can't do it. The results on the field would say otherwise. So, snapping this streak, it's good for Shane Beamer. It's good for the program as a whole. And maybe most of all, it's good for the sanity of this fan base. Because similar to that Kentucky streak, it's a maddening streak more than anything. It's a streak that most Gamecock fans cannot wrap their brains around. And there have been some excruciating losses in this 4-game losing streak. There's been some excruciating results. Getting this tiger-sized monkey off of your back and snapping the streak to Mizzou, one of the top priorities coming into this season, and certainly would be huge for Gamecocks football moving forward. Now, guys, in the big storyline in this one, we have to talk about it. Shane Beamer's broken foot. And all of a sudden, this has become the Beamer broken foot game. I am really curious to see what he's going to look like on the sideline. Is he going to sit on a stool like Derek Dooley? Is he going to have a chair? Is he going to tough it out and have nothing? Is he going to be in a boot? Is he going to be on crutches? What does this look like for Shane Beamer? Does it really play that much of a role in the result of the game or what happens on the field? Not necessarily, but it is one of those things, guys. Win or lose, the images from this game of Shane Beamer are going to be astounding because it's either going to be South Carolina goes on the road and wins, and this forever becomes known as the Beamer broken foot game, or South Carolina loses, and this becomes the next Shane Beamer meme. So I'm just curious what it looks like. Again, what's he got going on with the foot? Is he rocking a boot? Is he sitting on a chair, on a stool, whatever? I am admittedly very curious to see that, and hopefully we're talking about the way this football team rallied the troops and circled the wagons and rallied around Shane Beamer's broken foot, and South Carolina's rivals don't have more ammo because of the pictures that may come out from this ball game. Now, to on the field, guys, I cannot wait. Admittedly, I love a good old-fashioned pitcher's duel in baseball. I love a good old-fashioned quarterback duel in football, man. I mean, I know we're tired of watching bad defense. I understand that. But, man, it's a lot of fun to watch two signal callers get into a groove, get into a rhythm, get into a zone, and do their thing. And I think we're going to see that on Saturday. I really do. Spencer Rattler on the Gamecock side, of course, and Brady Cook on the Mizzou side. And Brady Cook been one of the biggest surprises in the SEC this season, guys. When you look at his numbers, averaging over 300 yards per game passing, many of you raised an eyebrow when I said that the quarterback position was a push between South Carolina and Missouri. You got to look at what Brady Cook has done this year, guys. I know he has more help. I know he's got a better football team on the offensive side around him, more weapons. But for a guy that even the Missouri fan base was convinced he needed to be benched, when you consider that, Brady Cook has been fantastic this year. And in a game that I do think, guys, I've already locked in the over 59.5, and a game that I do believe is going to be back and forth, a lot of scoring, Quarterback play is going to be at a premium, and I just cannot wait to watch these two guys go at it. I cannot wait to see these two quarterbacks duel each other, and at the end of the day, may the best man win. Now, who's going to help Spencer Rattler, guys? You look at the South Carolina running game. Thankfully, Mario Anderson is good to go in this one, but what can Mario Anderson give the Gamecocks in the rushing attack? You look at Missouri as a team, and I know we've talked about their defense a little bit. They haven't been quite as good as I thought they'd be at this point. They've done a good job, though, stopping the run, giving up just 118.9 yards per game on the ground. They've only surrendered 4 rushing touchdowns, guys, all season long, and only giving up 3.7 yards per game on the ground. So I could see this being another game in which it is difficult for South Carolina to run the football. But as we've talked about before, guys, Mario Anderson doesn't have to run for 100. He just has to run well enough to give, dare I say, the illusion that South Carolina is balanced. Getting the Missouri defense off balance is going to be key in this football game. Having them be guessing, if you will. Making them just at minimum respect the rushing attack. And Anderson, a guy, of course, dealt with some injuries last weekend. Shane Beamer says he is good to go. How much can he give you? Because at this point, guys, love the way Juju McDowell was utilized last week, right? We all like De'Kebrion Joyner as a person and as a player. And then Octavius Braswell, who knows if he sees the field. But this running game, it falls on the legs of Mario Anderson. It comes down to what does 24 give you? And I'll be curious to see what he gives South Carolina in this one in support of Spencer Rattler on the offensive side. Somebody who's really emerged, guys, over the last couple of weeks, and it's been great to see, right? Because I know a lot of Gamecock Nation had really high hopes for this dude, and that is Trey Knox. And the emergence of Trey Knox has been really, really cool to watch. 15 catches over his last 2 games. Had a touchdown in that game against Florida, of course. As this season progresses, and it looks like you may be in a position where you're going to have to outscore your opponents to win. You're going to be asking your offense on a weekly basis for more and more and more and more. Trey Knox is a guy who can help give you more, right? Because right now at wide receiver, it's Xavier Legette, and then kind of whoever shows up that week, right? You need the tight end position. We talked about it last week. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago in the Tennessee game. We've talked about it over and over, but you need the tight end position to continue to be a threat for you, right? Especially in this football game. I think there's some situations. I think there's some matchups with both Trey Knox and Joshua Simon where they are favorable to South Carolina. Do we see Trey Knox's workload continue to be as such, 7 or 8 catches? Does Spencer Rattler spread the football out a little bit more? Do we just continue to see Trey Knox be a big part of that South Carolina passing game, especially in the red zone? Nicholas Harbor burst on the scene last weekend. 1 catch, 45 yards. Nick Harbor had a quote this week, guys, and of course, I'm paraphrasing what he said. But, basically just saying, I've been learning since I got here. It was exciting to get on the field. It's my time is coming, my 100-yard game. It's going to happen at some point. Very, very humble. Let me just say this, a very well-spoken kid. Sounded mature, but beyond his years, and you love to hear that. He's trusting the process, trusting Shane Beamer, trusting Dabble Loggins in their usage of him. But do we see more of Nicholas Harbor this week? And I think we're asking that on a weekly basis now. But, after you make a big play like that down the field, and so many Gamecock fans looked at it and said, see, you just put him on the field, good things are going to happen. Throw him the football, give him a chance. And as we mentioned before, guys, this is the time of year that I expected Nick Harbor to start making a much bigger impact. Does the workload for Nick Harbor increase? Do we see him get more targets? He's been getting snaps, but do we see him get more targets? Is this the game that Nick Harbor breaks out and becomes a big factor in a ball game? And, it's not a matter of if, guys. It's a matter of when. When's Nick Harbor going to have that breakout performance? When's Nick Harbor going to go for, like he said, 100 or more receiving yards? Could it be this weekend in Como? We shall see. Now, on the offensive line, I thought South Carolina did a really good job in regards to the way they shuffled some things around. Nick Gargiulo at center, Trey Jones at right guard, and Vershawn Lee at right tackle. And I don't know who South Carolina pissed off, the football gods, what have you, but it's just, offensive linemen have been dropping like flies this entire season. No rhyme or reason behind it, just sheer bad luck, I suppose. Because now Vershawn Lee is more than likely out for this football game, and everybody's favorite Gamecock, Sidney Fugar, is going to slide in more than likely at right tackle. Oh, my goodness. The question is this: can Sidney Fugar hold his own? Can Sidney Fugar hold his own at the right tackle spot? He was much better last week, by the way. Give Sidney Fugar credit. That was probably his best performance in Garnet and Black when he got in that football game. But I know many are like me, where you are a bit jaded and you have PTSD from watching 77 out there struggle and struggle mightily. Can Sidney Fugar do his part, not be the weak link, and hold his own at the right tackle spot or whatever spot he's put in? He's going to have to for that offensive line to have the type of game they'll need to win this football game. Now, switching sides of the football, guys. For South Carolina defensively, I think what's really interesting, a top storyline for me, is how the Gamecocks choose to attack Missouri, because it's really pick your poison with this Missouri offense. Brady Cook's been in a zone all year. They've got Cody Schrader and Nathaniel Pete in the backfield, two really capable running backs. You then look at wide receiver. It's not just Luther Burden, guys, who's been one of the best players in the SEC this season. It's also Theo Weiss Jr., who is a fantastic player in his own right, a former 5-star recruit. Missouri is loaded at the wide receiver spot. They're loaded at running back. So what do you sell out on more so? Because you can't let Mizzou just run it down your throat. But you also can't have the secondary doing what they've been doing over the last couple of weeks, giving up 400 yards passing and just having no answer to anything in the back end. Also, guys, I tell you this not to scare you, but I tell you this just to give you some insight. Missouri ranks 9th nationally in college football in explosive passing plays, 20 yards or more, right? So they rank 9th in those plays. And, of course, as we all know, South Carolina fields statistically the worst secondary in college football when it comes to passing yardage allowed. But what do? Do you sell out on stopping Schrader and Pete and try to bring the pressure on Cook and put your DBs on an island, something that has not worked at any point this season? Or do you drop an extra man in coverage, account for the passing game, and trust that your defensive front can stop the run with 3 or 4 guys, or get pressure on Brady Cook with 3 or 4 guys, something they haven't really done? They've been much better against the run, but it's, I think, more so, guys, because teams have been throwing the football all over you. So what does Clayton White do? Because at this point, guys, Clayton White, it feels like he's coaching for his job. You got to pick your poison with this Missouri offense. What do you choose? What do you pick? Guys, on the note of the secondary, I'm just, how does the secondary respond, guys? Is this season really just doomed to be this secondary is going to finish dead last in college football with the players they have? Is that really what's going to happen? Are we really staring at another 400-plus yard performance from another SEC quarterback? Is that really about to happen? Or does Marcellus Dial respond? Does Nick Emanwari respond? Does DQ Smith, O'Donnell Fortune, do those guys respond? Is there any semblance of life from that secondary? Or is it more of the same? Who's the leader in the room? Who's the leader of the defense? Heck, that's another big storyline. Is there a leader on this defense, guys? Is there a leader on the defensive side? Who's the guy that when things are going south, puts his foot down, or better yet, puts his foot up somebody's ass and rights the ship. Who is that guy? In years past, it was guys like Ernest Jones, Sky Moore, DJ Swearinger, right? We think of some of these great leaders in Gamecocks football history. Shaq Wilson, J.C. Horn, even a Cam Smith on the outside. Like, whoever it is, whatever level it's at, like, who's that guy on this defense? Does that guy exist? Who's the leader that when things go south, puts their foot down and says, no more. We're not allowing this. This isn't our standard. We got to get this corrected. At some point, that guy has to step up, or it's just going to be more of the same on the defensive side. Guys, on the special teams side of things, and as you all know, I think special teams plays a role in this football game. I've got Mitch Jeter against Harrison Mevis as one of my key matchups, the two kickers. But on the punting side of things, Kai Kroger has admittedly been in a funk this year. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. And maybe it's a little bit unfair because it's not like Kai Kroger's been terrible, right? Most teams, most fan bases, they don't even care about their punter. They're not even watching their punter. They don't give a damn. If you're having a punt, it's just a bad thing no matter how you spin it. But that's not Beamer ball. That's not South Carolina. So Kai Kroger was a weapon for the Gamecocks at the end of last season. And all of a sudden, he's just kind of there. He's even shanked a couple. Does Kai Kroger finally get out of his funk, guys? You're going to need him. I mean, it's so pivotal, guys. We talk about this all the time. For a team like South Carolina, who's trying to, for example, go on the road and win a game outright that you're a touchdown underdog in. Guess what, guys? You're going to be the underdog in a lot more games this year. So for a team in South Carolina that's trying to steal a couple and get the bowl eligibility, you got to win the special teams fast. There is no negotiation. You have to win in the special teams department. That means Kai Kroger has to be at his very best. Does South Carolina get that best version of Kai Kroger, or is it more of what we've seen over the last couple of weeks? And finally, guys, my final top storyline. I just look at it this way, guys. Rubber has met the road for the 2023 football season. What now? What now? You are 6 games in with 6 more to go. And this game very well could set the tone for the second half. But let's call it for what it is. It has been a hellacious week for Gamecock Nation, for all those who have any sort of interest in Gamecocks football, starting with the game against Florida, okay? Then Shane Beamer's post-game presser after the Florida game goes viral. Then on Tuesday, Shane Beamer makes us all aware that he broke his foot in frustration after the game. Safe to say, Coach Beamer, those comments go insanely viral. Then on Wednesday, when you're like, can this just please go away? Then on Wednesday, Shane Beamer confirms, oh, yeah, by the way, I kicked a Gatorade cooler. It's not like I went in the locker room and lost my cool or anything. Like, that makes it a lot better. So that happens. I mean, it has been, even for the most loyal, diehard Gamecock who's been through it all, I don't know if anybody's seen something like this. And with that in mind, doesn't it seem as if every time, at least in the Shane Beamer era, every time it feels like South Carolina's fans, those around the program have just mailed it in. This team's going to go 4-8. This season's a wash. Beamer's this, Beamer's that. We're this, we're that. South Carolina finds a way to circle the wagons and play their best football. Does that happen? You know, is South Carolina really just doomed for, you know what? You're right. Season's over. Going to go as chalk. Gamecocks will win 2 more games. They're going to get blasted and all the rest. Is that really how the season's going to play out? Is it? And I'll tell you guys this, I learned my lesson last year not to give Beamer and Company 0% chance, not to mail it in at any point, because what happened in that 38-6 loss to Florida last year, and then 7 days later that Tennessee game, what happened in that is unexplainable. It's unexplainable. Shane Beamer has made the unexplainable common at South Carolina. And so I just wonder, guys. I wonder as a fan of Gamecocks football. I wonder as a Gamecocks content creator. I wonder as an observer. Is this it? I mean, is this it for South Carolina, guys? Is this it for the 2023 season? Is South Carolina just doomed to fade into the oblivion and all hope is lost and that's all she wrote? Or does South Carolina have a couple more punches left in them? Rubbers met the road in the 2023 season, folks. It starts Saturday in Convo. Guys, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into a quick break. On the other side, I'll lock in my prediction for Saturday's game. Gamecocks and Tigers doing battle in Columbia, Missouri. All that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, Hollow Dougie,
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Thursday, October the 19th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Like I mentioned before, guys, we will make time at the end of this show for the daily mailbag. So do not fret, guys. Continue to leave us your questions, your comments, your voicemails. Also, if you want your voice to be heard, we will take voicemails. I kind of notice, and I don't know if this can be explained, but a lot of people that used to call in on a daily basis, they don't leave voicemails. Like, why is that? I wonder why that is. I don't know. Either way, you're more than welcome to call, not call. You want to leave your comments on YouTube, what have you. Also, those on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in and appreciate you guys engaging with the show. And again, we will take time at the end of this show for our daily mailbag segment, taking all of your questions, your comments, and as I mentioned, your voicemails. But as I mentioned, top of show, it is prediction time. South Carolina, can they snap that dreaded 4-game losing streak? Not just to the Missouri Tigers, but to Eli Drinkwitz as well. A guy whose winning streak against the Gamecocks goes all the way back to his time at Appalachian State. 2019 was when that streak started, when he took down Will Muschamp's Gamecocks at Willie B. What a tumultuous week for South Carolina fans. What a tumultuous week for Gamecock Nation and Gamecocks football as a whole, guys. From the loss to Florida, the post-game presser after Florida that went viral, the Beamer broken foot on Tuesday that went viral, the update on the broken foot Wednesday that was confirmed that Beamer suffered the injury kicking a Gatorade cooler. And oh, by the way, all of that, all those external things, on top of the fact that South Carolina currently sits dead last in college football in passing yardage allowed per game, passing defense, dead last in college football, dead last. A defensive coordinator who I would say this entire fan base wants gone. A quarterback who's doing everything he can, but all of his great efforts are going for naught. They're being wasted. And South Carolina now, the reward for all those things I just mentioned, they got to go to Columbia, Missouri and take on a top 20 ranked Missouri Tigers team that just waxed Kentucky in Lexington at night. An impressive win, no matter how you spin it. When you look at Missouri, guys, we've talked about him all week. Brady Cook's been fantastic. He's in a zone. I don't know if anybody expected him to play like this. I mean, most Mizzou fans, guys, we did our SEC opponent or SEC team previews over the summer. Missouri folks wanted Brady Cook benched coming into the season. They wanted him benched, right? So that gives you kind of an idea what their thoughts were on their QB1. The rest of the offense, been outstanding. They're averaging only 138.4 yards per game on the ground, but they're very effective with Cody Schrader, and Nathaniel Pete. In the passing attack, averaging over 306 yards per game passing, 33.86 points per game. To say they've been potent offensively is putting it lightly. They feature one of the best playmakers in the SEC in Luther Burden on the outside, and he's also accompanied by Theo Weiss Jr., who I would say, guys, is also one of the best wide receivers in the conference. A great 1-2 punch at minimum. Again, I mentioned Schrader and Pete in the backfield. It'll be tough to stop Missouri's running game, tough to stop the passing game. You got to pick your poison. What do you do when it comes to Missouri? Then on the defensive side, guys, they're allowing their opponents to score 24.86 points per game, allowing just 118.9 yards per game and just 4 rushing touchdowns to this point. And just 226.57 yards per game through the air. And you got to factor in, that comes with one game against LSU, who carved them up, because LSU is carving everyone up this season. Missouri, by the way, averaging 445 yards per game. Offensively, they give up 345 yards per game defensively. And on the defensive side, guys, they're not quite as dominant as I thought they would be. This is a defense that had over 80% of their production returning from last season. So I think this group, they haven't been quite as good as maybe as I expected over the summer, but that performance against Kentucky, that was vintage Missouri defense. Like, that was dominant, swarming. They get better as the game goes. They're really tough up front. They've got one of the best defensive backs in college football, and Chris Abrams-Drain on the outside. They're experienced in the secondary. They've got a really good linebacker in the middle, and Tyron Hopper. Guys, they're loaded. They're loaded across the board. Heck, they've even got special teams to go with it, guys. They're dynamic in the punting game. Heck, they had a fake punt last week that they completed. I think like a 40-yard pass or something like that. And Harrison Mevis, he's been inconsistent, but hit a 61-yard winner against Kansas State earlier in the year. So in all three phases, there are issues for South Carolina to deal with. You look at the history of this series, guys. These games have been really, really close. Every year, it seems like, no matter what, these games have been ultra competitive. And I think evidence of that is Vegas. Spread opening up at 8 points. I was surprised by that. Thought it'd be more. And wouldn't you know it, that spread has come down from 8 to 7.5 to 7. Some of you even said 6.5. It's a fishy line, no doubt. It's a fishy line, no doubt. And my, oh my, how the narrative changes just off of whether you win or lose. Because if South Carolina gets one stop, if they get one stop in that Florida game, Marcellus Dial makes that tackle, game over. Gamecocks win. Sure, we're complaining about the defense, and we're obviously nervous about the defense coming into this one, but we're talking about, man, what a gutsy win for South Carolina, and they can beat anybody with the way Spencer Rattler's playing. But instead, you cough up that 10-point lead, you lose that game to Florida, and the narrative this week is South Carolina stinks. They're never going to win another game. Fold up shop on the season. Carolina's going 4-8 at best. Mizzou's going to win by 30 points. I went back and forth with this prediction, guys, all week. Because on paper, Missouri should beat South Carolina and beat them handily. There aren't a whole lot of things you hang your hat on coming into this game as a fan of the Gamecocks. You have Spencer Rattler. That is the best thing you got going for you. QB1, he's going to give you a shot. But even with that, this offense has been far less productive on the road versus at home. Spencer Rattler, guys, has been far less productive on the road versus at home. Can you get Mario Anderson going? Can the offensive line hold up without Vershawn Lee and with Sidney Fugar at the tackle spot? Can Spencer Rattler put together the type of game he needs to win this football game on the road? Can he outduel Brady Cook? Can Xavier Legette outduel Luther Burden and Theo Weiss Jr. and have a huge performance? Can somebody outside of Xavier Legette step up and make an impact and make a contribution? And then defensively, can you get any sort of stop? I mean, can you just get a stop? Just a stop. Can you make a tackle in critical moments? Can you make a big play in a critical moment? Can you get the turnovers that have eluded you all year? Nothing on paper says South Carolina guys should win this football game. And this week, again, this has been a tumultuous a week. This has been as tumultuous a week as we've seen since Shane Beamer's taken over at South Carolina. And there is absolutely nothing on paper that says the Gamecocks should or will win this football game. When it seems like all hope is lost, when it seems like everything is going against the Gamecocks and the fan base has mailed it in on the season and the roof is collapsing and everything's coming crashing down. Isn't it funny how South Carolina, with their backs against the wall, under Shane Beamer, tends to play their best? But beyond any sort of reasoning, beyond any level of comprehension, South Carolina seems to play their best with backs against the wall. And so, admittedly, guys, I can't give you a whole lot of football reasons why it's going to happen. I can't dive into each and every single little matchup and tell you, oh, South Carolina's got the upper hand on Mizzou here, and here, and that's why they're going to have success. I can't do that. I can't give you a ton of good football reasons. But what I can tell you is this. No matter how you feel about Shane Beamer's outbursts in press conferences, no matter how you feel about Shane Beamer's broken foot saga, this football team, over the course of his tenure, has used things like that, it seems, to circle the wagons, to rally the troops, to get everybody back bought in into a common goal, and to go out and do the unthinkable. And I've got this weird gut feeling that I've had all week long that we've about reached that point in the season where the unthinkable, or what feels like the unthinkable, occurs. Lock me in. Gamecocks 38, Mizzou 34. Again, I can't give you a lot of good football reasons, guys. And I'm even surprising myself with this pick. Because on paper, Missouri should win this football game. And I think Missouri is a legitimately good team this year. I'm not picking South Carolina because I think Mizzou is going to fall flat on their face and they're no good. They're overrated. They've played nobody. Missouri is legitimate. And you know what, guys? For all the Mizzou folks who might be in here in the chat, might be hearing the sound of my voice and might be trolling with that, listen, you tell me Mizzou wins this game by 21 points, I'll tell you I believe it. I believe this game could go exactly like Tennessee did. Close for a little bit, gets away from you, and the rest is history. It could absolutely go just like that. South Carolina secondary could have no answer for Luther Burden and Theo Weiss Jr. But I just feel like haven't we learned our lesson by now? When you doubt Shane Beamer the most, that's when they rise to the occasion. And you know, Shane Beamer, that coaching staff, that team, they're taking every piece, every little thing they see, every piece of criticism, every tweet from TSUS, every post, Barstool's article, they're taking this, they're taking that. They're using all of that as fuel. They're using all of that as external motivation to play with that chip on the shoulder. And so do not be surprised, even if it's in defeat. Do not be surprised if South Carolina comes out and plays like a team with its hair on fire. But I think they will do that. I think they will. And I think it'll be enough in a 38-34 Gamecocks win over Mizzou. Guys, that being said, let's jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk some SEC pick'em. I'll give my picks for each of the games on the SEC slate this weekend. All that and more on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie Ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we're back here on this Thursday, October the 19th, 2023. Again, do not fret, guys. I will get into all of your questions, your comments, your voicemails as well after we go through our SEC pick'em. So we'll go as long as we have some questions to answer. So flood the chat with your questions, and we'll get into all of those. Also, guys, a really good way to get in touch if you do want to leave some questions, text our text line at 843-790-3377. You text that number, guys. Not many people do send questions in via text, so it's a great way to make your questions stand out if you want them answered on the air. That being said, guys, it's time. We're locking in predictions. SEC Pick'em, Week 8, and a lighter slate of games this weekend. We only have 5 games, including South Carolina's game against Missouri. So without further ado, we'll go ahead. We'll get into it. We will start in Fayetteville, Arkansas, taking on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. This a noon kickoff on ESPN. Who needs this one more? On one hand, you have Sam Pittman and the Arkansas Razorbacks, a team that is desperate for a win. And Sam Pittman is now recently on the hot seat, right, in year 4 of his tenure. On the flip side, you've got Mississippi State, Zach Arnett. This team ranks dead last in recruiting rankings right now. They come off the bye week, but previous to that, struggled against Western Michigan. And again, you talk to State folks, and most of them think Zach Arnett isn't a long-term answer, but the best of a bad situation after the passing of the late, great Mike Leach. This game being in Fayetteville, I think, guys, is a big, big difference maker for me. I think this is a fun, competitive, back-and-forth game. I think you're going to see a pair of hungry teams, desperate teams. There's no Rocket Sanders, by the way. So it all falls on KJ Jefferson. If you have not been watching, by the way, guys, the play of KJ Jefferson, the level he's playing at right now, I mean, throwing the Bama dude off of him, this dude is playing at a level that he deserves more. He deserves better flat out than what he's getting. But I think he will get better this week. I think behind KJ Jefferson and another fantastic effort. No Rocket Sanders, no problem offensively. Despite what Will Rogers did against South Carolina, I think what you've seen, guys, that was the exception, not the rule. I think they still have issues and question marks on the offensive side because of that. And the game being in Fayetteville, this is a game Arkansas has to win on their home field. And I think they will get it. I'm siding with Arkansas to get the W in this football game and finally snap their, 5-game losing streak they have right now. They'll finally snap the streak, taking down Mississippi State on the home field. We move to Tuscaloosa, the 3rd Saturday in October. And, guys, this game was a classic last year. The 52-49 shootout, Tennessee snapping a long streak, a long, frustrating losing streak to the Crimson Tide. And now Alabama looks for their revenge, hosting Josh Heupel and the Tennessee Volunteers. Fascinated by this matchup in this one, guys. The Tennessee front 7 against a really suspect Alabama offensive front. And on the flip side, Alabama's elite front 7 against Joe Milton. What Joe Milton did against Texas A&M, despite the fact the Vols won that game, it was troubling. I mean, it was really concerning. And so you take a look at this game, guys. I mean, do I think that Alabama with Jalen Milroe and there's still problems in the rushing attack? Do I think they're wildly explosive? Not necessarily. But I just don't know how Joe Milton's going to outdo Jalen Milroe. Now, can that Tennessee rushing attack be the difference and get going against Alabama? Guys, we've seen revenge factor play a role this year. Tennessee against South Carolina. You saw it, right? That fan base, Tennessee as a whole, they were out for blood. Bama is out for blood in this football game. I think Tennessee keeps this game respectable. I think a double-digit spread is way too high, and I think that's why you've seen it come down. But I do think Alabama will get the win in this one. I just don't think there's any way Nick Saban and Alabama and that fan base and that program, there's no way they're allowing Tennessee to walk in there and get the W. Just no way. There's no way. And I also don't trust Joe Milton to do enough to win this football game. He's not a terrible quarterback, but he is terribly inconsistent. And so I think Jalen Milroe, the running game, does just enough. I think both front sevens are really good in this one. I like the under. I've already stated that. I think this is a lower scoring contest, but I do think Alabama on the home field, I do think they will get their revenge and take down Tennessee, guys. Like I mentioned, already locked in Gamecocks taking down Mizzou. We then move to Auburn and Ole Miss on the Plains, a 7 o'clock kickoff on ESPN. Man, things get weird at Jordan-Hare, man. Things get really, really weird. I am very intrigued to see what type of performance Hugh Freeze, Peyton Thorne, that Auburn offensive attack, the Auburn football team puts together. I could see a situation in which Auburn's defense is flying around, swarming around, making big plays, right? And then you've got an Ole Miss team that's coming off the bye. They're well-rested. Jackson Dart, Quinshon Judkins, some others had an opportunity to get their feet under them, get healthy, what have you. I'm siding with Ole Miss in this game, guys, but I'm nervous about it. I'm not even going to lie to you. I'm nervous about this ball game. I could see Auburn doing something crazy and pulling off the upset at home, making a couple big plays defensively, maybe a defensive touchdown or something like that. But barring a situation like that, I don't see how Auburn's going to keep up with Ole Miss. I just don't see it. I don't see how Auburn can keep up with Ole Miss. So I'm going to ride with Ole Miss. I'm nervous about this ball game, but I'm going to ride with Ole Miss. And finally, guys, LSU taking on Army, a 7:30 kickoff on SEC Network. All these times, of course, Eastern time, by the way. LSU, a huge favorite in this game. It's funny, I was talking to our good friend Blake Ruffino of AYS Sports this morning, LSU guy, obviously. And he said with their defense, I asked him, you nervous about the game? How you feeling? He said with their defense, he'd be nervous watching LSU go up against toddlers. So I don't think there's any guarantees this game won't be frustrating for the LSU faithful. I don't think there's any guarantee this game won't be kind of interesting at halftime. But LSU is going to win this football game, guys. The biggest thing for LSU on the defensive side is staying healthy. Because with the option, right, Army's going to try to take the legs out, take the ankles out, make sure nobody gets hurt. Jaden Daniels and company, Malik Neighbors, Logan Diggs, they're going to go off. They're going to have a field day. I would expect the LSU offense to go up and down the field with ease. And LSU, I am picking them. They will get the W. Do they cover the 30-point spread? If their defense can play well, I think so. But, I mean, that's, you never know. With LSU's defense, it's crazy how much talent they have and how poor they've been this season. But I do have LSU taking down Army under the lights at Death Valley on Saturday night. Guys, that being said, that's going to do it. We will get into our mailbag now, take some questions, some comments, what have you. Our good friend Robbie Davis texted in, said, what's up, Chris? It's Zaxby's Hall of Famer. I just wanted to give you my prediction, and my prediction is South Carolina 35, Mizzou 28. The reason I don't leave a voicemail is because I don't want to ever accidentally go over the 3-minute mark. Go Gamecocks. To heck with Dabo Weenie. Great to hear from Robbie Davis. Let's see. Let's try to get into some questions here. Austin Gregory says, Arkansas fans loved Pittman the way South Carolina fans do Beamer. He's a program guy. He's made it clear he wants to stay there. I just hope we aren't in the same situation as them next year. Austin, to your point, it's very, very similar. It's a very similar deal in regards to the way that Sam Pittman, the way he's a fit there and the way fans look at him. It is very similar. So Austin says, I know we always talk about him and Beamer time. Arkansas was a very similar situation inherent with a similar history of South Carolina. Why is Pittman on the hot seat in year 4, do you think? Austin, I think that Sam Pittman's on the hot seat because no coach is immune to the effects of losing. And I just think it's Austin, it's one thing. It's one thing to sit back and say, hey, we'll give this coach 5, 6, 7 years, whatever. It's another to endure it and go through it. It's just, I really think that's what it is, Austin. I think losing takes a toll on you. And I think Austin and Beamer could be facing this. I think Pittman is a victim of his early success. Like, he won 9 games in year 2, man. Nobody wants to go backwards. Nobody wants to say, okay, well, we're still making progress even though we won 3 less games this year. Like, college football fans just don't get that. College football fans, they don't equate progress to winning less games. And no matter how many times you say it. No matter how many times you say it. Lucas Green says the Mizzou game was being played at Williams-Brice Stadium. I would maybe agree with you, but as much as I want, Missouri wins this game. Cody says we get revenge and end up on the right side of the clock, opposite of last week. Would love to see it, man. Ethan K says missing the drop yo nuts mentality. Austin Gregory says, who would ever thought that Alex Grinch's USC West Southern Cal or USC West defense would be outperforming ours? Ouch. Damon Reed, the one punch they have left, hopefully will occur on November 25th. I hear you. Madison Duncan says, people look at you funny when your phone's blaring the Daily Crow from your shirt pocket while walking around Lowe's. I'm one of those now. Hey, Madison, I appreciate you. That's awesome. Lee Gilmer, let's not forget, we were bowl eligible by the time we got to Tennessee and Clemson. We were playing with house money, not fighting to get a winning season or even go 500. I mean, Lee, to your point, you make a fair argument there. I mean, but were we playing with, I mean, did you feel like we were playing with house money? Like, well, it's okay. We're already bowl eligible, whatever. Like, I mean, I don't think going 6-6 is good enough at South Carolina anymore. Steve Austin, they're going to lose the rest of their SEC games. Yes, except Vandy, but I'm still holding out hope for that last game of the year. Lee Gilmer says, what we saw last year was just good old-fashioned flukes. That's why it can't be explained. However, our O-line wasn't this bad, and the defense could get pressure. Justin Kyle says, undoubtedly, or unfortunately, I don't think this team rebounds with Clayton White running the defense. I mean, that's fair. That is fair. Justin Kyle, I'm still not over the UNC game. It scares me to think Beamer had all offseason to prepare and to look as poorly as we did on the O-line's pathetic. Part of me thinks it shows a lot about Beamer. I hope I'm wrong. Bruce, Kai, I think, has pressure to pin them on the 1-yard line every punt because of our bad defense. You might be right. You might be right. Let's see. Taking a couple more questions. Let's see. Okay, just checking out the Discord. Hampton says, I have to believe we get to 6 this season. How we do it is beyond me. Fingers crossed, man. Fingers. I would hate to be in a position to where, we're making content, we're doing this, and there's no bowl game. Because you know what, guys, people can say bowl games are meaningless, but you know what's worse than playing in a meaningless bowl game? Not playing in a bowl game at all. That's just my opinion. For your football team to get 10, 15 more practices, another game, that's a fun thing. That's never a bad thing. That's never a bad thing. I'll tell you what, these dogs, by the way, up here, they've got a really, really good sense of time, guys, because we've hit 2:00 and they are standing up looking at me, ready to go on their afternoon WALK. They are ready. They are ready. So I don't know. The dog might bully me off the air if I stay on too long. Let's see. I don't know if I even want to read the comments today because it's just us It's just us wallowing in misery. I want to go back to some of these comments here when Marc was on. Let's see. A lot of comments. I apologize. I'm not able to get to all of these. Austin Gregory says, I'll leave it at this. Congrats on your Super Bowl, Mark Ryan. Madison, best show so far this week. Now on to football, Mark. Who are you picking? Let's see. Okay. A lot of y'all just went at Mark earlier in the show, which is fine. Okay. David says this. Two of a kind. Both of you talk a lot and say very little. Wham, 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 wham. Well, David, I appreciate you tuning in and chiming in and commenting just to say that. Thank you. I'm kind of entertained right now going through all these comments. Let's see. Justin Kyle said it was his first time in here in almost a year. Well, welcome back, Justin Kyle. Great to have you. Great to have you, Justin Kyle. Great to have you. For once, I am reading the comments. It seemed like Justin Kyle was very, very upset today, as many others were as well. Anyways, okay, let's get back down to boop. I went back to when Marc was on, and the chat got pretty sideways. It got pretty sideways. Lynn Washington, I'm just checking in. Did we speak on Wells? Juice Wells is out. It is confirmed per Shane Beamer. Austin Gregory is Mizzou arguably the toughest remaining opponent on the schedule. I think you could definitely argue that, Austin. Yeah. I mean, who's tougher? I mean, they just waxed Kentucky. I'm not ready to give that to Clemson by any stretch. I think Mizzou would probably beat Clemson right now. And I mean, Texas A&M, who knows what Texas A&M is. So I'd say Mizzou right now, yes, they are the most difficult game remaining. So without a doubt. Okay. Anyways, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Looks like we're good on the question side of things. The daily mailbag, I apologize, guys. It was cut short. Obviously, we had a very, very long and intense conversation with Marc Ryan earlier. But tomorrow, our Friday Q&A show, taking your questions, your comments, and yes, your calls in that first hour or just tomorrow. We might actually kick off the show with Jake Crane tomorrow. I'm not sure yet. But either way, we'll take your questions, comments, and calls tomorrow. We'll open up the phone lines tomorrow and then open up the phone lines again on Saturday for the post-game call-in show. And actually, tomorrow we'll do voicemails again. Saturday we'll open it to calls. Tomorrow, voicemails again, but nothing but your questions, your comments, your voicemails all throughout the show. Going to be a ton of fun. Guys, that's going to do it for me. Appreciate you all tuning in. Electric show, electric stuff. Let me say this. I cannot say thank you all enough for the continued love and support. Appreciate each and every single one of you. Thank you all so much. Appreciate you all tuning in. Have a great rest of your Thursday. And we will talk to you all tomorrow.